all the members of the Connecticut PURA. And it's a hot day out there. I'm State Senator Tony Hwang, and I want to comment on docket number 25-0403. I want to thank you for the opportunity to submit testimony regarding the proposed sale of Aqaurion Water Company, currently owned by Eversource, to the Regional Water Authority, and obviously the new entity that was cited here. I want to oppose this transaction and the flawed legislative process and the regulatory process that has enabled this process to be where we are right now. I think the first point was, as a state senator, the real lack of transparency in the legislative process that has enabled this transaction to be discussed. This sale was quietly authorized during the June 2024 special session through an omnibus bill, which is Public Act 24-1, with no standalone debate or public hearing on this issue. I voted against this bill due to its lack of transparency, public scrutiny, and informed deliberation. This legislative maneuver effectively bypassed a truly open and transparent government process and denied residents, stakeholders, and legislators the opportunity to properly engage on this matter of real significant public consequence. A transaction involving a vital public resource such as water, essential to life, public health, and environmental sustainability, truly demands a full, transparent, and participatory review process. I'm glad at least we're finally getting a chance to present that to you, to PURA. Thank you. But these kind of public interests must be on the forefront, not buried with a rushed legislative package. So for me, the lack of transparency in the legislative process is deeply troubling. Number two, I think my biggest concern is it's a threat to municipal revenue from watershed lands. This sale jeopardizes revenue for our municipalities derived from property taxes on watershed land currently under Aqaurion ownership. RWA is a quasi-public authority with very different tax obligations. If they should acquire these land, towns across Connecticut, especially within my district, faces a real risk of losing critical tax revenue that funds education, infrastructure, and emergency services. And I think you'll hear that from many of the municipal leaders that will be voicing their concern. And the stability of our community should not be sacrificed without real detailed impact analysis, mitigation plans, and a real process. Again, lacking process transparency, many of our municipalities are deeply concerned about the potential loss of revenue because this new entity, as it's established, will not be obligated to pay property tax. And number three, the loss of regulatory oversight and consumer accountability. As I mentioned, the first two processes, we did not have that transparency. We did not have that accountability. And the process was deeply flawed and dare I say, incomplete. And perhaps the most troubling aspect of this sale would remove the new entity from oversight by the Public Utility Regulatory Authority, the very body that is listening to this conversation, listening to this deliberation. If this same transaction was to have occurred through Section 1, a legislative lack of transparency and accountability, and 2, impact to our municipalities, we would no longer have the pure regulatory review that is entailed today. And for me, that is deeply troubling because PURA plays a critical role in protecting consumers, ensuring that rate increases are justified, fair, and subject to public input. This new entity would no longer have their rate setting be reviewed by PURA, which protects our consumers, but instead by their elected board of that entity. I think by exempting RWA from this oversight, we really open the door to unchecked water rates hikes, eroding accountability, transparency, and consumer protection, evident by what has already transpired in the first section of the legislative process. So in conclusion, and a real urgent call to action. And I hope you'll hear from many of the municipal leaders that feel that degree of frustration and lacking transparency and process. And I'm grateful that we at least have this regulatory review under PURA. But ultimately, if this was to go through in a sale transaction and the Regional Water Authority through its new entity, we would no longer be afforded that opportunity to protect the consumer and representation. So again, for these reasons, I respectfully and emphatically urge the rejection of this transaction at a minimum. I think it must be subject to a full public and transparent review process to safeguard our ratepayers, municipal revenue, and environmental stewardship and public accountability. I thank you for your time and an opportunity, and truly, I'm grateful that PURA has had a chance to review this and have a regulatory review because the new entity, should it be approved, would no longer be forth and transparent and accountable to the process that we're undergoing today. I'd be happy to take any questions from the commissioners, and thank you for your work.
Thank you so much for your comments, Senator. And I believe the next individual